Gents, I just want to pause the episode for a moment to let you know about the Strong Men of Value Academy. You will have heard me refer to it a number of times, and I want to bring more attention to it. So this isn't just a program, it's a life-changing environment and community of men who are focused on personal and professional growth. We're looking at areas of relationships, wealth, and health, things to help you thrive and maximize your life. Imagine having bi-monthly one-on-one coaching sessions with myself, weekly group coaching calls, and an incredible brotherhood of high achievers by your side. Now we're diving into resilience, leadership, and holistic growth to not just succeed in your career, but to thrive in your health and your relationships. Your journey to greatness, it starts here. So join the movement and you can apply for the Strong Men of Value Academy. You can head to themanthatcanproject.com to find out more. Today, I'm joined with Watto, who has come down from the Sunshine Coast to share his story. His ownership around events that happened a couple of years ago is inspiring. It doesn't take away what went down, but it also hit home coming from the rugby culture. Just knowing that when people think, act in certain ways, we often may not realize the severity of our actions. So I think Watto sharing his story is extremely powerful and can be used as, an educational tool that definitely needs to be shared around. So if you do get value from this episode, make sure you do share it with people who would gain some value from it, and hit the like button to make sure you never miss another episode. And if you are tuning in for the first time and you want to get involved with the Man That Can project and create momentum in your life, check out the Strong Man of Value program, which is for men all around the world. Okay, it's an incredible online community. We have resources, 12-week game plans, and it's just one of the coolest places to be if you wanted to take your life to that next level. So you can find that out. Head over to the manthatcanproject.com, check out the Strong Men of Value program, and get involved. Let's dive into the episode.
You're listening to the Man That Can Project with Lachlan Stuart, a global movement created to empower men and open up what's really going through their minds by having real and raw conversations about life's unique challenges and our individual ways of processing it all. Welcome to the Man That Can Project.
Welcome back to another episode of the Man That Can Projects podcast. I'm your host, Lachlan Stuart, and today we've got an incredible guest with an incredible story, and one that I first came across through the Thanks Collective video, and we had Curls on here probably 50 or so episodes ago, and he creates incredible films portraying people's stories. And Watto, mate, your story was next fucking level, and it was one that Jesse, who also is a part of the Man That Can project, came in the next day and said, "You've got to watch this story, man. He's one of my mates." And I was like, "Bro, I literally watched that last night." And it's so relatable, especially coming from the footy culture. And mate, now that you're out sharing your story, I think it's so empowering, because so many blokes could easily have been in the same position. But thanks for driving down from the coast to come on, mate. I truly appreciate it. And everything we talk about on here today is going to be from, right from your mouth, mate, obviously. But it's going to be good to hear it from a place that not many people have heard it from before. So, yeah, mate, I'd love to pass it over to you. Give us a bit of a background on who you are, where you grew up, and...
Yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on. I'm really excited. Came across you the same way through Curls, and he's been a huge part in sort of encouraging me to come forward, and the way he sort of portrayed, my life and the story, and what he did with that video has been sort of a part of my healing process as well. And I saw what he was doing with the Thanks Collective early on, and was having a couple of conversations about going on, and at first wasn't really keen on it for a whole different reasons. But the more I saw the videos he was putting up and how it was going down, I sort of became keen on the idea, and sort of realised that, the video can serve a greater purpose than me. And it's not something that I wanted to sort of shy away from, I guess. And I have been shying away from for the last few years out of, some fear and what people are going to think, but I'm so glad I did it, and I'm really happy with how it came out. And now I can come on and do things like this. I did a little pod yesterday afternoon with a mate, so you don't know where this is going to go, but for me, it's more a fulfillment thing, I guess, and raising some awareness, as you said, for especially younger blokes in the footy culture who can probably relate. And I guess me as a person, I grew up on the north side of Brisbane, just an ordinary young fella going to public school, playing AFL, rolled through the public school system up there, and I was playing footy at a pretty good level, sort of taken in when I was probably 12 or 13 into the Brisbane Lions Academy, which was a pretty new system for sort of recognising talent at a young age and trying to develop it and fast track footy in Queensland, and they've done such awesome things up here. If you look at how AFL and the Lions are going now, it's huge. But back then it wasn't as big. I went all right at footy, obviously, and was in that for most of my teenage years. And on the forefront of my mind then was making the AFL. That was what I wanted to do, and I really believed that I was gonna get there, and I didn't through a whole different reasons. It's really hard to get picked up in Queensland. You got to sort of be the elite of the elite, and although I was a solid player, I sort of didn't have that extra ability to get sort of picked up. But was studying uni for a period of time after school as well, so I was just cruising through, still playing a pretty solid level of footy around here for the Aspley Hornets, so in the NEFL competition, which is sort of a tier below the AFL in this region. So I went from school into uni, into the academy, into Aspley, and playing senior footy, and that was where I sort of was introduced to the footy boy culture at a really young age. I even remember then playing seniors and being 17 and, being pretty solid. So I had a good chance. And I remember going out with the boys on a couple of fake IDs back then. And so that was introduced to me at a really young age as well. And when I sort of didn't make it with footy, and then I'm at uni, sort of started to party a little bit as well, because that's what you did when you're a footy boy and you're at uni. That was it. So it was going out on the weekends and really enjoying life at the time for what it was. And then there was some events around that time. Would have been probably 2017 or 2018 that really shaped where I've gone in the direction of my life now.
How old were you back then?
So that would have been, I literally would have been 17, 18 in that sort of age bracket there.
And so you were, fresh out of school.
Out of school, yeah.
Not much life experience, just what you've learned through the
100%.
school system and footy.
100%. And I sort of grew up quite quickly being around those older boys as well. Like I said, I was going out with a couple of fake IDs, so I was hanging out with blokes that are a bit older than me, even that first year out of school, mid-20s, older 20s sort of thing. I wasn't playing Colts or 18s or anything like that. I was playing with senior men at the time, and it was sort of introduced to, going out with them and hanging out with them a little bit. And I still had mates my own age, but I sort of had that older group of mates as well around that time. So, over that year, had some pretty crazy things that sort of changed my direction. And fast forward 12 months after that, I moved to the Sunshine Coast, and that was sort of my own decision through what I was going through at the time to take control back of my life. And that decision was more me finding myself in a bit of a rut, but just doing the wrong things and not being true to myself. Because I think growing up, and if you talk to anyone that knows me, I've always had a really positive energy and aura with what I do, and I've always really embraced that that's me. And so through some hardships, I sort of found myself not being true to that. I was going out in the piss every weekend. I didn't have a job, and I was going out with 10 or 15 bucks and, sort of hiding my problems away and, drinking and drugs and whatnot. And it just wasn't me in a lot of ways back then, and doing that for the wrong reasons, I think, to try and escape what was actually going on in my life. And, I sort of nearly fucked things up with my beautiful girlfriend. So that was a huge part of it as well. That was the sort of the breaking point, wake up call for me. We weren't really together at the time. We were sort of on and off kind of thing, but I was pretty close to losing her, and that was what really hit home for me. Like, I looked in the mirror and thought, you're a fuckwit. Like, stop doing this sort of shit. And so I made a decision to start fresh, move to the coast, launched a business, and I'm very lucky that she decided to come with me as well. My beautiful girlfriend Chelsea moved up and took a punt on me. So that was huge as well, I guess, having her come with me as well at that time when I've got a fair bit hanging over my head.
Yep.
I don't have a lot going for me. But yeah, she really backed me in as well, which was huge.
What made you though look in the mirror? And we'll go back to what actually happened eventually for those who are going, what the fuck's happened?
Yeah, because that's going to be we're going to go.
Yeah. But you know, there's a lot of blokes who can definitely relate to everything that you've said. You know, they might be about to lose a relationship. They don't have much going for them.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, essentially what feels like rock bottom. But for you to look at yourself in the mirror, fuck, I still do it to this day. Some days where I'm like, fucking sort your shit out, mate. I want better than this.
Yeah.
What was it for you that was like, right, I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to take action on it.
Yeah, I can't pinpoint I have a very vague memory of when I made the decision, but I remember there was a couple of times like I went out for dinner with a couple of mates, and I literally just couldn't even afford dinner. Like I had no money to my name because I'd just been out in the piss that weekend, and I'd just fallen into I guess a trap and a hole of just making that the norm for me. And when I nearly lost Chels, that was sort of like, fuck, like, what are you doing? Like, you've got this awesome chick that, you know, you're seeing and, you know, could really see your life going a long way with, and you're fucking around on the piss and with other chicks and you're just being a dickhead. And I obviously had this hardship hanging over my head, and it just all became too much, I think. And I just sort of made this decision. I said, I'm going to the coast. I don't know what I'm going to do up there, but the Sunshine Coast, it's 40 minutes away. I'm going to just go start fresh and get the hell away from all this, because it was just could have been caught in a rut, I guess, and every day you wake up in the same routine. So I think I had to just break the routine a little bit and break the habits that I'd created. And I think it was something internally that kicked within me, and I don't know the exact point that it happened, but it was a decision that I made. And at that point I just decided that the universe was going to get the fuck out of my way and I was going to get this done. And that was literally my mindset going into it. And it happened, and you know, I made that decision, and then things started to really flow from there. The universe did get the fuck out of my way, which is, you know, crazy, because I came across an opportunity to launch a boot camp. And I just lost uni, so I was studying teaching. I sort of stepped away from that for obvious reasons that we'll touch on later. And I'd done a little bit of anatomy, a little bit of fitness, because I was going to be a PE teacher. And I had a mate who was starting these little boot camps, and I sort of approached him. This is a crazy little story, but I approached him. I saw him on Facebook. Awesome. I saw him on Facebook posting that he was doing these little boot camps, and I was like, fuck it, I'm going to go approach him, because, you know, I'd done a little bit of gym work with him earlier on when I was at footy, and he was just a really good dude, and, you know, he looked like he was doing cool things. So I approached him. I said, hey, look, you got any PT work up the coast? Like, can I help you out? I'm going to move up there. And he's like, come in and meet me. So I went and met him, and I came out maybe half an hour later, 40 minutes later, after chatting to him, and he'd talked me into starting my own business. So
really?
That was how I went in for a job, and I came out
with a business.
So that literally happened. I told him I needed to ponder on it, but I was at this point where I was just like, fuck it, something needs to change. And I remember I was driving home, and I hadn't even got all the way home, and I called him after meeting him, after telling him I was going to wait, and I said, fuck it, I'm in, like, let's do it. And I have no business experience. I got no PT experience really. I like bits and pieces, sort of doing my cert. He's like, I'll fast track your cert and we'll just get you rock and rolling. So I was like, all right. So I just sort of went with it with him, and it would have been maybe a month or two. We did some pre-selling. He sort of did all the background stuff because that's what he did, and he just needed people out in the front line sort of doing what his vision was. So I learned a fair bit from him in that month or two before I moved up, and then went up and just started and just went straight in the deep end. With not much experience at all, but I've always been a sort of people person. So I sort of found my feet quite early on in terms of being able to build rapport with people and being able to, you know, sell people. And he gave me a lot of confidence with that as well. But that sort of gave me some direction from that point onwards. And instantly I felt like that was extremely fulfilling. And in that 12 months prior, I'd just been not fulfilled in any facet of my life. Like I'd just been, you know, living really pretty much under the line in every aspect. And then it just felt so good to do something like that and help other people. And being a people person, it just instantly sort of clicked for me that this was going to be awesome. And, you know, I was on the hustle and the grind, and I was, you know, focused and aligned with what I was doing. So, it really just snowballed from there, and we grew quite quickly, which is crazy because I was running a boot camp at the back of my ute, which was kettlebells and some gloves that were secondhand. And I was sort of taking all that equipment around to different parks and schools, and was sort of doing everything solo early on. And I eventually came across an awesome client who soon became, she was a single mum, she couldn't afford to keep going, and I sort of asked her to just take care of my social media. So that was sort of our deal, and then she trained for free, and that really snowballed until we could get to a point where I could sort of hire her, and she really believed in what we were doing, and I had such a great impact on her that she wanted to help me. And so we became more of a duo. And then when we got to the business to a point where we could sort of hire her, she went away and did her cert, and she started working for us, and she still works for us to this day, which is 4 years later, which is crazy. So
what a story.
It's a crazy little story. And, you know, we've had a couple of other trainers roll through sort of up until this point, all started as clients and then wanted to jump in on what we were doing, which I think really gives perspective into the impact that we were having on people and are still continuing to have on people. And it just gave me reassurances that what we were doing was, you know, really awesome and on the right path. And that's extremely fulfilling for me as well. So it's a cool little story how we sort of started, and then it's a cool little story how we sort of snowballed into what we are today as well.
So they say the best form of leadership is when you're creating other leaders, right? You've got people stepping up in the industry, which must be super fulfilling, right?
100%, bro. And yeah, I've always sort of seen myself, more so now, but back then I didn't really realize it, but I have a lot of influence over people. Like you said, as a leader, I've always been able to, have that influence over people and help them make changes, especially now. And it was just sort of put who I am in a position where that really came to light, like being a business owner and then helping people make changes. I was finally using my leadership for positive reasons. And it was just it was all happened very quick at that point. And being a business owner at the time at 19, like, it's just crazy for starters. But I never really thought of myself as a business owner. I was using it to get away from what was happening down here. And then, I was just in the deep end. I didn't think too much after that. I was just every day on long days, you know, I'd do split shifts, go back and run sessions in the Arvo. And looking back on it now, was just sort of literally making it up on the go. It was exactly like that. So I obviously know a lot more now, and there's still so much to learn. And even the last 12 months, trying to navigate a business through a worldwide pandemic has been really something as well. So you think you got challenges in life, and then that happens, and you're just like, but, you know, I see them all as, you know, learning opportunities now. And I think a lot of that goes down to some of the hardships I've gone through. And, you know, I can look at a challenge like that now and not lose the plot. So I'm pretty level-headed with a lot of that stuff now as well. But yeah, it's a crazy little story how we sort of came to start and then how we've sort of developed as well.
I can definitely relate to the not really having much behind you. That's sort of how the whole Man That Can project started as well. And a dude presented me with network marketing back in 2014, and I came out with a fucking, you know, business or whatever they call it. And it was just like, put that aside as just like the hustle and the hunger and stuff to learn, grow and drive, then put me to where I am. And what I took away from what you were saying was, like, so many people get ready or don't say yes to opportunities because they don't think they're good enough or, you know, they're waiting for the better thing, but you just got stuck in and made the best of something that's now like your dream job. You still got your missus, you're inspiring other people to step up, and you're on the coast, man. You know. And I think for the listeners is like, there's so many men that listen to this that are keeping or remaining stuck in places that they're not happy because they aren't just prepared to do what you've done, right? And we'll dive on obviously what makes it even more in my opinion, makes it even more impressive from where you came from. A lot of people contextually or circumstantially are in better positions than where you came from, and they still aren't prepared to just go, look, I'm not happy with how my quality of life is. Let's do whatever it takes to change that.
Yeah, no, you're spot on, mate. And my hand was forced a little bit, but it sort of just brought out something deep within me that was obviously, in there somewhere to go and make a decision like that, because I wasn't gun shy at all. I was just at a point where I was just like, this can't get any worse for me. Like literally, like it was at a point where, like I said, I was barely able to afford dinner because I'd been out in the piss, and I barely had an income. I just lost uni. I just lost footy, so I was literally just ready to take a punt on everything. But I guess the mentor I had at the time and the guy that I went into business with was obviously a huge part in that, and he taught me so much early on, and just never, even for a second, questioned that I had no experience. He just really backed me in, and he gave me a lot of confidence in myself. And I guess I didn't know that until I sort of met him, and he sort of started teaching me different things along the way. So we had a huge focus on building a bulletproof mindset and being really strong-minded, and he was huge and instrumental in that. So that was a huge part of it as well. But you're right. I can't say I can relate to being. I feel like I've done this at a very young age. Like I haven't been necessarily caught in a job where I'm not happy.
Are you 24 now?
24 now. Yeah, going on 25 in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
but I've not necessarily been in the situation where I've been sitting in an office job and I know I can do more. That's different to sort of how I made the punt. But I guess, when we get into it later, you'll see that, I came from an even harder position to take a punt like that, I guess. But I've never regretted it. I just made it up on the fly a lot of the time. And like I said, when I made that decision to make the universe just get the fuck out of my way, it actually happened. And I truly do see it like that. I really did just was prepared to take on any other challenges at the time, because at the time it couldn't have got any worse, and I just said, I'm going to make this happen. And I remember having that conversation even with Chels, because I was borderline about to fuck this up with her. She didn't really know me, and I've got all this shit hanging over my head, and I've got no job and no uni, and I just said to her, I said, look, I'm going, and I want you to come, and if you don't want to come, then I'm totally going to understand as well. So I was at the point where I was just going. Like personally, I was going, and I'm very thankful that she came and backed me in, and she's built a very successful little career for herself up there as well. So I guess at the same time, I was able to sort of lead her into doing that as well, because she was, she would have been a year younger than me at the time, and she sort of took the punt to back herself in, and we just sort of backed ourselves in to do it. But that made a huge difference as well, having someone come up with you. My auntie lived at the coast, so I just sort of we lived out of her spare room for a bit until we could sort of get settled, and then we got our own place, and we've moved around a little bit since, still renting, but we just made it work, and we just made it work for us, I guess.
Yeah. Let's go back to 18, man. So this is, people are like, finally. I took a heap of value from that, and we'll come back there. But just to give some context, it was 18 when it all went down, or 17?
So, no, it was 2017. I would have been 18 years old, I believe, or just short of 19 in the timeline scheme of things. Back then, we touched on earlier, it was footy boy culture, was going out and hitting the piss most weekends, and had an Australia Day party. So January 26 must have been, 2017, 2018, around then, 2016. One of those 3 years. Back then when I was 18. With a heap of mates, and we listened to the Jays and got the countdown on, and just drinking most of the day, and we sort of played a prank on one of the blokes there that I didn't know too well at the time, but one of the other boys was pretty good mates with, and we played what we thought at the time was a jovial sort of prank that we didn't know really the severity of until later on, it came back to obviously sort of bite us. There's 4 of us at the time later on, and that happened in January. There's a video taken at the time by allegedly myself. So that was sort of my part in what happened. I just sort of videoed, and one of the boys has just grabbed a beer bottle on one of the other boys that's passed out, stuck it up his bum, and didn't think too much of it. And even in the video from my angle, it's just sort of one of those things that happens over a 30-second sort of period. And we're obviously 25 beers deep at the time as well. Like we, put a slab away by this time because it was pretty late on the Australia Day party afternoon. And that happened. We sent the video the next day in a group chat, and at the time it seemed like it was okay received. There was laughing from all parties. This happened, blah blah blah. I'm sure there was plenty of other videos sent at the time as well, and didn't think anything of it. So that was January, and then fast forward to October. So we're looking at 8 months later. I was at university and got a call from my mum at the time, who just said, "Hey, you got to come home. There's detectives at our door." And I was like, "What the fuck? Like, that's weird. Like, interesting." But you just sort of get that gut feeling straight away that something's not right when you hear that, right? So I just dropped what I was doing and I was like, "All right, I'm going." And sort of called her on the way home, and she gave me a bit more context. She sort of said, "Hey, they're looking for you specifically. There's a warrant, and they've got a search warrant as well. So they're looking through the house for your laptop and phone, I think it was." And I'm just on adrenaline at this point. I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck's going on here? So I'm sort of, a bit shaky, driving home, get home, and the detectives have gone by this point. So it probably took me about half an hour to get home. By this point, they've gone. So I'm like, well, they're not desperate to obviously find me. Yeah. So, but they'd been around the house looking for my laptop and phone, which I had with me at the time, obviously, because I'd been at uni. So they didn't get anything that they were after. And, they'd left some paperwork that was a warrant for my arrest. And I sort of read through it, and it sort of said, you have allegedly raped another guy, and these are your co-offenders. And it had my three mates' names plus myself. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, trying to work out at what point this had happened. And I saw the name of the victim, and the only time I'd met him was on that day. So that sort of pinpointed, at least for me, okay, that's at least, it had to happen around here, sort of thing. And they said, there's a video, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going through my phone, find this video on my phone. I'm looking at it, I'm like, fuck. Oh, fuck. Like trying to piece together that video and then the seriousness of this paperwork. And that was just like, okay, what the fuck? Like, I can sort of see now, I guess, that is most likely what they're talking about. But I'm thinking at the same time, there's no way you can pin us for that. Like, there's just like, was never our intention at the time. And had never crossed my mind that what we had done was that, I guess. It was just such a harshness to the word, and what we'd actually done at the time just couldn't really draw those two together. So, and I'm also crazy on adrenaline at the moment. Like, I've never been involved in a crime in my life. I've always been pretty well behaved, clean skinned. I've never been in a fight. Like, it's just not me. Like, I've never seen or been a part of anything, or a troublemaker, I guess, at all. So at this point, we obviously seek some legal advice. We get onto the parents of the other boys, and we find out that one of them was home when they turned up. So he's been arrested. Yep. So we can't contact him, right? So I'm like, fuck, all right. And we call some legal advice, and they're sort of saying, okay, we'll chat to the police, blah, blah. So they do their thing. They chat to each other, and they just sort of say, you're going to have to turn yourself over and just be processed and charged. Like, we weren't going to escape that side of things. Yep. Nothing was going to get sorted that day. So I handed myself over to the police station that afternoon. It's a Friday Arvo. I remember it was a Friday Arvo. And he says, the last thing he says is, they don't process you in time. You'll probably spend the weekend in the watch house. And I'm like, fuck, like, I might not come home till Monday here, or am I going to come out at all, So he sort of was able to organise bail. We were processed within a couple of hours, but that was sort of my first experience with, sitting in a holding cell for 2 hours when, 4 hours before that, I was just at uni just chilling, and now I'm in a holding cell 4 or 5 hours later with this pinned on me. And, sort of was released that afternoon. And, from then on, it was just like a whole different ball game of that side of the world, and because, like I said, I'd never been involved in a crime and never gone against the law, sort of thing. So we seek some legal advice, and there was a long period of time there where we were just going to court dates and talking to lawyers, and it was a pretty crazy time there, and especially that day there where we were obviously taken in and processed. It was just a crazy turn of events, I guess.
It's especially, obviously, you've been so young in that, with the aircon on nice and cool.
Yeah, you're right. No, go for it.
But also, like, it doesn't take away from what it is, but I think there's such a lack in education, especially in the footy culture, for things like that, or, there've been times where blokes have passed out and we've shaved their eyebrows and stuff, which could probably be assault or something. I don't know. But at the time and in what's going on, it's just like, oh, this is a laugh, and you don't understand the severity of what you're doing, which is, this is why I think it's so. I love that you're talking about it, because there's so many blokes out there who have maybe done similar. You see it in the footage stuff all the time, but who aren't aware of something like that you think is a joke is so serious. Yeah, no, you're spot on. Like I said, I was introduced to that culture at a really young age, and to us at the time, in that instance, our mindset wasn't we're going to rape this bloke. You know, our mindset was this would be funny. Yeah. And if it was one of us, we probably would have found it funny, right? To someone else, it's clearly not okay. And we just didn't understand that at the time. And then the punishment and the harshness of how it's played out since then is just so severe, I guess, for us. And that's sort of where I guess people have really had to look at this situation, and they've either related to it or they haven't. And you can sort of see that in terms of we thought it was okay. And then, the victim and his family obviously didn't think it was okay. So you just need to be really aware, and it was such a harsh lesson to learn for us at the time for exactly that. And, I wish we didn't have to do what we did to learn that lesson, because, when it was brought to light 8 months later, and I really think that it could have been we could have learned that lesson in other ways. We didn't have to go through what we went through, I don't believe, and we were really hung out to dry, all over social media and by different people. And so it was all over social media and stuff.
Yeah, it was, and it was pretty quickly learned that, that was us. Yep. So they didn't name names straight away, but it was pretty quickly out there. And then, the media, when they write these things up, at the time, we're just, bunging it on a little bit. And even now I look at every single media article out there, and I question everything now after going through it from my side of things.
Fucking media.
They just bung it on with all this bloody mayonnaise on top, and, really try and hang you out to dry. So it's pretty quickly learned that was us. And then, even after that, I remember going out on the piss a few times over that next 12 months, and you get different people coming up and asking you about it. And I'm a bit of an open book, like depending on the person, I was happy to, sort of say, yeah, it's okay. But, if someone wasn't as mentally headstrong as me and that was them, then there's every chance that, they could have crumbled with that sort of hanging over their head. And I didn't look at the Facebook comments, and even on Curly's video that he's released on Thanks Collective lately, there's always going to be a small percentage that are politically correct and want to go back and have their say. And that's totally fine. When you put yourself out there like this, you obviously, that's part of what happens. Yep. And I'm totally content with, what I'm doing. And I know that what I'm doing it for the right reasons, and not necessarily to plead my innocence. And this isn't a sob story or anything like that. It's to bring to light exactly what you were just touching on, and try and raise some awareness for people to just think twice when they're on the piss, and really think long and hard about what you're doing. And then the social media side of things as well, I guess, and how dangerous that can be, and how sending that's really obviously a big issue as well, and how we did that was not great. We sort of sent it and thought of it as a joke, and it just wasn't. It should have just been deleted at the time. And I guess that was again what was frustrating, because at the time he responded and laughed at the video the next day, so we automatically think that he's okay with that. And we didn't obviously think there was anything wrong with it in that regard. And then to 8 months later then find out that he's not okay with it. And I've got no idea on his mindset, and, I probably never will, which is also frustrating for me to know where he was at the time, whether the next day he genuinely was okay with it and then realised maybe later on down the track that it wasn't. And, for him at the time to laugh, and if he didn't realise at the time that it wasn't okay, then how were we meant to know that it wasn't okay? And had we actually gone in with the intention of raping someone, would we then send the video to the guy the next day? Do you know what I mean? Like, who would commit a crime and then send it to the victim the next day? Like, you just wouldn't do that. So it was just really clear to me that we were never intentionally trying to do that to him. It was, just a really harsh lesson to learn, I guess, in stupidity and being an idiot on the piss when you're 18, which I'm sure so many blokes out there are guilty of. And that was this really strong feedback for us along the way from so many people. Was like, even my mates, like, I could have so easily been standing there next to you in that room and, played the same part you did because, if you didn't stop it, then you're probably a part of it as well. And it takes a lot of balls for someone to stand up at that time and go, hey, that's not okay in that split second and say, hey, stop. You know what I mean? So if you're in there and, you don't stop it, then are you a part of it? Yeah, it's tricky. And, we had even girls at the party that day, if they had been in the room and, just been, there when it happened, would they then be pinned for taking part in it? I don't know. It's such a really tricky situation. I remember when we were sort of being sentenced at the time, we haven't really touched on that yet, but I remember they were trying to draw comparisons from previous cases in Queensland and ours. And the judge literally said, he's like, there's just nothing in Queensland law history that we can compare to what is happening here to get a sentence here. Like the prosecutor was asking for 8 years or something crazy based on a different
How did
case.
you feel when that was being thrown around?
Yeah, that was crazy because we never thought we were going, right? All our legal advice and a good lawyer team, they thought we were going to get off. Like, we're going to get you boys off. And that was for 12 months. We thought we're going to beat this, we're going to beat this, we're going to beat this. And so we took it to trial, and it eventually didn't go our way. But that first 3 or 4 days, our legal team were thinking that we're going to get you boys off. And myself, I had a different role to play to the other boys. There was every chance that, I played a minor role in terms of filming. So there was a chance that I was going to, just be pinned for that side of things, potentially and get a lesser sentence. Didn't go that way. But yeah, we had maybe one conversation over 18 months about jail time. That was the day before. And our legal team sort of hinted, if it didn't, it'd probably most likely been between a year or two served. And that was when I was like, a year or two, what the fuck? But you sort of had to prepare yourself for that as well, because, it was a possibility of happening, but we didn't think it was going to actually happen. And then, sentencing happened the same day that we were found guilty. So within maybe 4 or 5 hours after being found, we get brought back up, and our legal team sort of pleads for no jail time and or the absolute bare minimum, and the prosecution asked for 8 years based on a previous case. And when she explained the case, I was just like, that is not even remotely close to anything like we've done. But she couldn't even find a case in Queensland history that, even related to what we'd done. So the judge then has to decide what he wants to do and give the sentence. And he gave us the absolute bare minimum. So 6 months served, 2 years wholly suspended. So no parole, nothing like that. It was he literally was hemmed in a corner. He had to give us time based on the charge, but he gave us the absolute bare minimum, nothing attached, no, rehab or anything like that. It wasn't like we were, needed to do any courses or anything like that. It was just do your time, even 2 years on top to serve 6 months. The 18 months after that was just good behaviour, not parole. We didn't have to check in and go and, be monitored. Like, you could see, and he could see, that we were just idiots. Like, we weren't criminals. We were just idiots. And I think that reflected his sentence in a lot of ways. And we had to do the 6 months, and we did it with our heads held high, and we went down and we stayed loyal to each other. And, we had no issues over our 6 months either. We just got in there and got it done, and, experienced that, I guess, for a bit as well.
Is it pretty scary in there?
Well, yeah, it was interesting. It's just a different way of life in there for them, and that is a lot of their lives. And like I said earlier, I've never committed a crime, but you just get thrown into a world of uncomfortableness where everyone else in there is so comfortable. Like, that is them. Like, they're in and out most of their lives. When you get to know them, they're probably just going to continue to get out, commit a crime, and go back in. And they're very institutionalized, and they have a way of doing things. So for me, it was more about just adapting as quick as I could. And they take you on face value, which, helped us, because the three of us we're not like, we were idiots on the piss, but we're good blokes, you know what I mean? Like, we were able to, network and chat and, hear them out, and they sort of heard us out. And, it was a really, really tricky time to just sort of go in and just adapt.
What was it like going in with the rape charge? Because obviously, is that...
Yeah, so that was really tricky because, like I said, we hadn't really thought about going to jail. Then we got put in, and it was like, okay, now what's next? And the advice that we were having from the outside, so from our legal team and whatnot, was to go in and don't tell anyone what you're in for, because, you know, rape can be seen as, you know, a bad charge in there, and they're going to, you know, send you to protection. So there's protective custody, and there's mainstream custody. And I remember they asked which one I wanted to go to. They asked you, and I was like, I don't even know the fucking difference. And they said, go to mainstream, and then if you have any issues, you go to protective custody. And that's obviously where they keep the sickos, like in protective custody. So I went mainstream, and then I was sort of thinking, fuck, okay, we'll just lie about what we're in for. We just won't say too much, just keep our head down. But you're in each other's space in there so much, and they all know each other inside out, that you can't just go in there and sit in the corner and not talk for 6 months. Like you've got to come out of your shell a little bit. And so they were very cliquey early on, but yeah, they told us to sort of not say what we're in for. And I got separated from my mates early on, and I was convinced I wasn't going to see them for 6 months, because you just roll through. And I eventually ended up in the same jail, which is out at Gatton, which out of all the jails was the talk of the town to try and get to. So when we got there, the guards there sort of said to us, like, you boys have a better profile behind you. We know, we've seen you on the news. The prisoners have seen you on the news. We know what you're in for. So we're going to keep you guys together, which was good, but also for us made us look really sus straight away, because these three blokes come in, and, you know, a couple of us have probably seen us on the news, but we clearly don't belong. That's the other thing. Yeah. Like one of the boys had a man bun at the time, and in there it's all short back and sides, and you can just tell that we didn't belong in there.
Did he keep his man bun when he went in?
No, he got a wicked rat's tail actually at one stage, where they eventually convinced him to cut his hair, and he went to the barber, and they gave him a wicked rat's tail. So he eventually obviously adapted, but we've got some little funny stories along the way. But yeah, at that time, us three, we get pulled out there, and the guards there, this was tricky for us, because the guards were just your everyday average Joe bloke that you see and that I would talk to. And he sort of said to us, you know, he's like, don't tell anyone what you're in for. We're going to keep this together, blah, blah, blah. And so I take his advice on. I'm like, this bloke, like, can relate to him a little bit. Like, I'm going to trust this guy. And then you get in there and you learn very quickly that that was not good advice at all. Like, not to lie. That was dumb, because I told them that I was in for, I don't know, assaults or something at the time, and they eventually clued on when a couple of us went up to get a visit at the same time. It was so our mums came out together and we went for a visit at the same time. After about a month, we finally got a visit, and then we came back, and you could just see they were just sort of sussing us out a little bit, because we were harmless in a lot of ways, but in there as well, there's such thing called intel, which is where someone would go in and not actually be a prisoner. They're most likely a police officer or something trying to get information, so they're intel. Right. So they're sort of looking at us thinking, you don't belong here. Maybe they think we're intel because we're hearing all this sort of chatter, and we're thinking, fuck, what if they think that's us? But it's not us. And so eventually, they sort of confronted us and said, hey, we've sussed you out. We know what you're in here for, and we know who you are. And they said, we don't give a fuck about that. Like, we actually think you're pretty funny. That was what a few of them were saying. They were like, you're just idiots. They saw it the way we did, I guess, in a lot of ways. And they just said, don't ever fucking lie to us again, though. Like, don't do that. And that's when we sort of said, well, the guards have told us to do this. And that was when they were like, you don't fucking listen to them. You listen to us. And that was where we sort of were like, okay, shit, we're going to have to be criminals here for the next 5 months. Like, we're going to have to adapt to that lifestyle, I guess. And from there, we sort of got to know a few of the boys in there pretty well. And I, even to this day, I stay in touch with a couple of them over the phone and whatnot. And
are they still in?
They're still in, yeah. So, which is crazy. And one of my good mates in there, he's been in there for a long time, and he's got a long time to go. But still will check in with me once a month. He'll give me a call, and I'll just say good day and see how he's going. And not a lot's changed for him, but he likes to listen to what I'm doing. And
it's crazy,
it was crazy,
man.
Because, in there, quite a few of them obviously made some fucking dumb mistakes, and they're now paying for that. But you can see that, I don't know whether they're rehabilitated or not, but you can see that they're living and owning their mistakes. And, a few of them will probably just go in and out for the rest of their lives, and that's just their lives. That's all they know. But I remember even over the 6 months, just there was some crazy shit that went on in there, and it was very much just routine. And very much screws, which are the guards, against the prisoners, going back and forth for sort of, just at each other a little bit. Not anything crazy, but just for the prisoners would always push the boundaries in terms of what they were allowed to do, and then the guards would push back, and it would just be back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It was very fucking entertaining a lot of the time because, it made the days go by quite quickly a lot of the time. But we also, we had literally 0 issues in there for 6 months. Not one person had an issue with us or confronted us, and we didn't step on anyone's toes. We didn't get into a fight. We didn't have a single issue in there the entire time. And I think that probably is a testament to just us as blokes. Like, we didn't go looking for trouble. We kept our heads down. It helped there was 3 of us, but like I said, we made a couple of mates early on as well that, sort of helped us out and guided us and taught us a lot of ways in there, and how to survive, I guess, but how to just get through. Not necessarily that it was life or death, but how to just get through 6 months and make it as easy as possible and just do your own time. And it went by quite quickly, believe it or not, but. Yeah, some days they would drag on, but the days went quite quick, and then, we were just counting down. And counting down is the worst thing you can do because you just like...
Oh, man.
I remember just like counting down. I remember just trying to think, don't think of that number because that's so many fucking days you got left. But then I remember the last day when we were getting out, there was a few of the older boys that obviously had sort of run the unit. They've been in there for a while. They sort of come up and they were just like, look, we don't say this very often to blokes. But they shook our hand and they just said, I know I'm never going to see you blokes again. And he said, I never say that to anyone here. Like, he normally says goodbye. Like, a bloke will get out on parole knowing that he'll be back in a few months. Whereas he came up to us and he said, good luck with your lives. I know I'm never going to see you boys again. And I never say that to anyone in here. So you could just see that we were just so out of place the entire time, I guess. And, even they sort of realised that as well. It was a crazy little 6 month period, but we adapted and we got in there and we just got it done. And that feeling of getting out that last day was like, I'll never forget that feeling of walking out and just knowing that you're out. It was crazy.
What was the first meal you had? Did you have like a fucking meal request?
Oh shit, this is going to test me. I can't remember. It would have been something good. You actually get fed all right. We went to the Bavarian that night and had some beers. I remember having the first beer and just it's pretty blind after that first beer.
Because you can't drink.
You can't drink, yeah. Well, yeah, actually they got their little tricks. We made some goon at one stage using fermented fruits. That's a thing. They sort of collect their fruit and then I don't know how they do it, but they keep it in a jug and over time it sort of ferments and you make like a goon. And I remember we had that at Christmas and New Year's. That was a little thing that we did. It's a crazy little world for considering no one really has much inside, or you just think bad things when you think of jail. Like you're just like, oh, that's where bad people go. That's where murderers go, blah, blah. And don't get me wrong, like I used to sleep next to a murderer. Like he was in the next cell. And then,
does that make you nervous?
Yeah, well, not really, but because you meet them and then you find out later what they're in for and you're like, what the fuck? Like, and the mate that I took...
people at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. And the mate that I still talk to now, he is in for attempted murder. Yep. So, and like just... I still to this day can't see him doing that, but, he obviously made a mistake like nearly 15 years ago and now he's just not that person, if that makes sense. Yep. And, he's obviously serving his time and I'll still chat to him, but I take him as a bloke, not from what he did,
not his
because
charge.
He did the same to me. You know what I mean? And not like I had a choice, like I wasn't going to be like, you're a murdering prick or anything like that. But, he saw what we were in for and straight away was like, you boys are all right. Like, we don't judge you for what you did, right? We judge you as blokes and as people. And, it was sort of reciprocated, I guess. But, there's obviously some scary motherfuckers in there as well.
More people fucking did that, though. Like,
100%, yeah.
Everyone's just like, even when I was going through a heap of change, I remember people making Facebook pages and being like, oh, no, you can't change. Lockie used to do this. I'm like, yeah, I fucking did. And I talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Like, what else you got on me?
And that's the same right now that like some people commenting on the video and they're always going to be like, but yeah, you're exactly right. Like I'm owning what I did and I'm not saying what we did was right. Like, I'm saying the opposite. I'm telling you that was not okay. And I learned that in the harshest way possible. And I'm not saying we were innocent. I'm just, we did our time. We've served what we needed to serve, and we've learned our lesson. And, obviously won't make that mistake again. And if I can help someone else out there not make the same mistake, maybe not at the same level as us, maybe on a much lesser scale, but it's still for me, it then serves a huge purpose, because I've always been influential in helping my gym, my clients and whatnot. But I feel like by doing this, I can sort of reach more people, and this fulfills me on a much larger scale, being able to sort of reach people wherever they're listening.
It's such an important part, like even from mental health to sharing your experiences. No one wants to share their shit because they're worried about judgment or the tags that go along with it.
I was the same, because I was the same when I first initially saw the thanks opportunity. I was like, fuck no, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not putting myself out there. I'm not going to go and, I was like, no way, because, they're going to say this and this and this. And they have said this and this and this, but I'm in a different mindset now where it's bigger than me. And I think, you've got to just sort of be able to cop that. But for me, like I said, the fear and the anxiety that I had around coming out and the shame around it has been sort of curbed because of that inner purpose of wanting to help other people, and knowing that, the feedback I got early on from the video, even from a couple of people, a couple of teachers that I know that said they showed it to a couple of kids at school.
It should be shown at school.
Exactly. And they, they showed it to a couple of kids at school, and the kids were like, holy shit, like instantly made it all worth it. Like, just that one message that I got, I was like, fuck, like, yes, I needed to hear that in a lot of ways. It was some reassurance that I, wasn't putting myself out there for no reason. But the feedback's been huge, and the opportunity to come on and do this and reach more people. And there's some people that are going to listen to this and probably learn a lot from it, and there's others that are going to think that I'm still a fuckwit. But that's what happens when you put yourself out there.
There's people that listen to this and think I'm a fuckwit. I don't know why they're still listening. But
exactly right. You're never going to keep everyone happy. There's always going to be a small percentage of people that, are going to hit back against you. But, those videos have reached thousands of people so far, and there's only been a few that have sort of kicked back. But it is what it is. I'm really happy with how it was portrayed, and, the lessons behind it, I guess, as well. And we there's so many layers to it as well. And I guess being in there was a really tricky time. And that 6 months, like I said, it went quick, but there was slow days and fast days, I guess, as well. And build a fuckload of resilience, obviously, doing that.
We've sort of like touched on, obviously, thinking before you act, and I think even the importance of just talking about anyone who's listening, like any fuck ups that you've had, it's important to share. And like, if people judge you, they're the wrong people to be hanging around. But how are others supposed to learn? Because we only learn from a textbook, right? And that's not, most of it's not going to help us get ahead in life or understand how to live more fulfilled and happy lives. But then you also go through being able to adapt, and it's such an important thing to be able to do with life, especially how much change is happening with technology and shit like that.
No, you're spot on. The adaptation side of things, it was just... that was huge. It was like adapt and overcome, you know what I mean? Like, it was like, how do I make this situation serve me, and how do I, at least take some positives out of this? And through looking back on it now, I was having this conversation yesterday, if it was very easy at the time to say, why is this happening to me? Life's unfair. And that was a lot of the thoughts that were going through my head over that period before I made that decision to move. It was, poor me, poor me, poor me.
Yeah.
And once I made that decision, I changed my train of thought, and it'd be, looking back on it now, if I didn't move, if that didn't happen, right, I'd probably still be a teacher somewhere in North Brisbane, cruising through life, right? I wouldn't have my girlfriend. I wouldn't be on the Sunshine Coast. I wouldn't have my business. And all those things happened as a result of, me turning it into a positive situation for me. So that's the way I sort of find a lot of strength in how I handled it now, is that I wouldn't have even the mates I have today up the coast if, that didn't happen to me.
Yeah.
So I've sort of, that's the way I reflective and I guess the perspective that I've had on how it went down a lot of the time. So, because even now when I have a conversation, people will be like, can't believe that happened to you, you're so unlucky, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, maybe, but, I wouldn't have this, and this if that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So that's a huge part of, I guess, my mindset with it as well.
The moment that you take ownership for anything in your life, you can change it. But if you keep going, poor me, it's like nothing fucking changes.
Yeah, you just play the victim, and that was what I was guilty of. I was just, doing exactly that. Just, being like, why did this happen to me? What did I do wrong? Blah, blah. And then, when I made that decision, obviously, it changed my mindset around it, and now I'm not glad that it happened, but, I wouldn't be doing anything. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you if it didn't happen. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be helping my clients right now if it didn't happen. I wouldn't have found my purpose and my dream job if it didn't happen. So it you can say it happened for a reason, but it brought the best out of me a lot of ways, which is I'm thankful and grateful for.
That's epic. And moving forward for you, like obviously everyone's finally got to hear what actually what went down, but you're making leaps and bounds because that was what. Let's say you've been out. What are we now?
So I got out. Been out for a while. Been out 3 years maybe.
Yeah, right. You've already done so much.
Yeah.
In moving forward with that, and it's like one of the greatest things that I have respect for you for is you're owning what you did, but you're also not allowing it to define you and the quality of life that you have, because a lot of people do it. As you said, people just keep going back into jail or people are afraid to put themselves out there and live the quality of life that they want because fucking Johnny on Instagram, who they don't even know, is fucking having a go at them. It's like, fuck off, mate.
Yeah, that's it. And, those sort of people are always going to say what they say, and I'm sure they're absolutely perfect as well and have never fucked up in their life at any stage, you know what I mean? So, the getting out was obviously awesome, but I had a lot of anxiety with coming out as well because I was thinking at the time, like, fuck, what are people going to think of me here? This might not get back on track. My clients at the time probably thinking, what a fuckwit, like they're going to leave me. So there was a lot of anxiety with coming out as well, even though at the time it was an epic feeling to see everyone again and get out. That was like, it was crazy. But at the same time, I was like, fuck, am I going to be able to bounce back from this? And, there's certain things that I'll never be able to do, like whether I can, travel properly with this hanging over my head. I don't know. I've never really explored it. Can't at the moment with the pandemic, but, going back and I'll probably never be able to be a teacher at any stage, given that the charge is there for a period of time. So, I lost a few things with it as well that, kind of restricted me. But even then, I've been able to just go a different path and try and always make things, work for me and serve me. And I'll just continue to do that moving forward. I think that's something now that I've really forged in, because if you look at it, you look at it like that and you think, even when we talk about it now, it still spins me out, I guess, that, all that went down and I've still got to where I am today. And it's only when we have these sort of conversations and you really put it in detail that it gets even crazier, I guess. So, I don't know what's next. I've just been trying to get the business solid and, I'm really enjoying life up the coast and, from doing these little pods, who knows what will happen. And, I'm happy to bring it to light, I guess, eventually. And it's brought a lot of darkness up as well, I guess, having to go through and mention it again. And, it was a time of pain and, my family now has to watch the video. Even though they loved it, they still had to sit there and watch that and,
how did your family go through all that process with that?
Oh, like just unbelievable for me and for the boys, because that was really what got me through, was having that sort of strong, close inner circle of people that just knew flat out 100% that is not me as a bloke. So they were obviously hurting and they were just so supportive, especially, mum and dad. Mum was a fair chunk of a mess. She didn't handle it anywhere near as much as or as well as I did. Which is fair enough when, that's just how a mother would react, I think, in a lot of ways. And she's was very emotional a lot of the time, but she was also, I think, came out of it a stronger mother and person as well, because, she stood tall by me the entire time. And, my brother and my dad and my girlfriend at the time obviously stood by me. And then, my uncles and aunties, they were all really solid, all there for me through the whole court case and, always sending messages, and I was always chatting to them, writing back and forth when I was in jail. I was always writing to them and keeping up to date with them. But yeah, it would have been hard for them, I think, to have to sit through that, and especially that last day on court. It was just like, it was like a movie scene, right? Like the last day when it got found that we were guilty, because all our families were there trying to cram in this little courtroom. And when they said guilty, all you heard was just hysteria. Like the people behind us, our families, I can't tell you who was there right now. There were so many people, were just like literally just bawling their eyes out. Like the judge was like hitting his hammer, like everyone needs to be quiet, like order in the court type shit. Like that was literally happening because there was 20 people behind us going ballistic over this decision to put us away. I remember then we went down to the holding cells to wait to be sentenced, and it was about 4 hours, and we came back up. And then the courtroom somehow was even more filled. Like, I'm not kidding. More family members had come from different parts of the family, and they were crammed in, and they were waiting for us to be sentenced. And it was like, that just would not have happened if to anyone else in any other case ever, I wouldn't think. Like, it was just so unique in how it affected people in our families, and then us as well. And yeah, I still remember the time, the point where my lawyer turned around and he had tears in his eyes, like dead set crying, because he'd obviously not got us off, but he just knew us as blokes, I think, and he just couldn't believe that it had gone that way either. And, you know, he's been doing law for probably 20 or 30 years, and he just was looking at us like, fuck, I'm sorry, boys. Like, I can't believe this has gone down the way it has. But, you know, it hit home for him as well. And anyone who got to know us or knows us knows that that's not us. And drawing that comparison was really tricky. And I think it's really easy for someone who doesn't know us to just go, oh, yeah, you know, here's the facts, here's what happened, here's what the media says, and, you know, judge us based on that. But anyone who does know us knows that that's not us, and that we shouldn't be, I guess, how we shouldn't be reflected on now, I guess. We should be people should judge us based on what we've been able to do since and how we've handled it. And that was sort of what I wanted to get across in the video, was that, I own what I did, and we own what we did, and we own how we handled it as well. And we went in, we did our time, kept our head down, we served our sentence, and since then now we're trying to do some good in the world.
Are you still playing footy?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Loving it?
Love footy, mate. Love footy. Love footy. It was one of the only outlets I had over that period. Like, just to, that couple of hours to train and play. Yeah. And we used to cop flack on the field even back then, like chat from the other team. Like, so even footy at some points, like, you couldn't escape it. Like, you'd be out in the field and, you know, you'd get the other team, or you fucking rapist or whatever, like, get stuck into you. So even that period there, like, that's your 2 hours a week where you can just go and have an outlet, and then you cop that, and then you're in your head there. So it was just constantly sort of weight on the shoulders type stuff for that 12 months. And it's probably 12 to 18 months when it was hanging over our heads before we even got to court, because that's how long it took. It was just such a crazy amount of time to have that hanging over your head, and then you can't escape it, sort of thing. But I absolutely love footy, and I play for Caloundra up the coast, and love the boys there. I've been there for a couple of years.
Does Josh Starlet play?
Yeah, Joshy, yeah. He was sort of instrumental in getting me to do the thanks video, because he did one, and he was the one that was like, mate, you need to do this, and, you know, and I was like, fuck no, like, I'm not going up on the video to say all this. And then the idea sort of grew on me, and watched a few more of those videos, and I was like, I could see myself doing this, and changed my mindset around the video being about me, and the video, you know, I was like, no, this can serve others, you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's when it switched for me to say, you know, I've got to do this for my own healing, but also to, you know, try and reach people wherever I can.
What advice would you give to yourself, or what do you wish you knew at like an earlier age, like 18 years of age or something?
Yeah, it's a good question. So much. I wish... I was having this conversation yesterday with someone, actually, which is crazy, like literally just yesterday. Like, I know people say that all the time, but literally yesterday someone asked me this question. And my answer was to, you sort of touched on it earlier, the textbook side of things at school. I wish I was introduced to, and this is something I'll be really big on my kids with, is your self-help and actually real world application of learning, and I wish I, you know, got into audiobooks at an earlier age, and I wish I, you know, didn't waste my time reading maths textbooks. Not that that's a waste of time, that serves a purpose, but I wish I had more of that side of things and your self-help type stuff, because it's really applicable. And you know, that 6 months I read a lot in there, and that sort of helped me get through that time as well. So I think if you can find evidence of other people then that goes a long way to building your belief.
Yep.
So I think getting those sort of stories out and little pods, like it'll be different now in 10 years time with all the podcast side of things and how that's
wild,
gone. It's going to be crazy because the podcast wasn't a thing when I was in school. That was only 4 or 5 years ago. So, I think that side of things, I don't know how the school system works now, but back then, it wasn't huge. It was just, go to school, do maths, do English, get a good grade. And then, it got me into uni and it wasn't even something I was passionate about. I just went to uni because I thought I had to. You know what I mean? I got an OP because that's what you did. So I think if I can get my kids, and I wish I questioned the social norms at a young age, and you don't have to go and do this because your parents did it or because that's what you're meant to do. Like, you can do whatever the fuck you want. You know what I mean? So try and, I guess, branch out and sort of teach my kids, I guess, that side of things, and open them and expose them to other things in life other than just go to school, do your work, go to uni, get a career.
Mundane. Mediocre.
Yeah. I read a book called The Code of the Extraordinary Mind. It's a ripping book, and it really changed my thinking on life. That book. It's it's a ripper. It goes into great depth on, just growing up and doing things because your parents did it, and because their parents did it and their parents did it. So, it was a great little book that I read that really hit home for me. In terms of, just going through life and going through the motions, because that's what you're meant to do. Yeah,
100%. Question things.
Yeah.
One last question for you.
Yeah, go.
What's your definition of being a man? I don't know I always ask this to everyone, but I never prep anyone because I think everyone, once again, it's like if people just follow the same definition of everything, it's like we don't feel like we don't fit in.
Yeah.
So I'd love to hear what it means for you.
That is a question I've never had before. That's a ripper.
It's only Tuesday, man.
Curveball question.
Tuesday.
No, it's a good question. For me, being a man, I think as men we're programmed to think that we have to be really tough and masculine. And I think in this day and age now, it's questioning that, and blokes are starting to, let themselves open up a little bit more, and I think that's the direction that that men are going. And little projects like this is huge for that. So I think being able to open up and just be true to yourself and not have that stigma of being a macho tough guy is huge now these days, and that's something that even I still battle with now, and went through with this video, was thinking I didn't want to be seen that way, but I think we just have to open up ourselves and just be true to how we're feeling and who we are, and everyone's going to be different in that regard with what they're feeling and who they are. But once you sort of find that and you own that, then I think that's when you really start to grow and become more of a man. That sort of sums it up.
Solid,
it's a good
man.
question.
Yeah. So you get some varied answers, which is good for the people out there, because they fucking resonate with that, which is awesome. Where can people find you on social media and stuff like that, or even in up the sunny coast if they want to find you? I'm
sort of based in Caloundra mainly. I live in Boccarina, but Vibe Fitness Caloundra is my gym. So if you're ever up the coast, you want to pump out a boot camp, come and join us. Or if you relocate up there, you want to give it a go, let us know. And then that's sort of my only plug, the biz. So much.
Easy as. Sweet as, mate. Well, appreciate you coming on. It's been fucking
Thanks,
epic.
Mate. Appreciate it.
I love what you're doing, mate. Obviously, it's an experience and fucking dumb mistake, and you've learnt from it. You're owning it, and I think it's going to be incredible that even for me, when I was watching that video, I was like, got to spread this message, because there's so
100%.
many young boys and men doing dumb shit that they don't even realise the severity of.
Yeah, and that's been the really common feedback with it, and hearing that makes me feel like it served its purpose for me. And it's not going to be a story that really hits home for everyone, but the people that it does, it really like, holy shit. And that was what a lot of people messaging me like, I know I did this, and that sort of could have so easily been me. So if kids growing up now, even teenage years, can just think twice, make sure they don't go and be an idiot on the piss, especially, and it served its purpose.
100%. If you love this episode, remember to give it a share on social media and tag the Man That Can Project and Lachie Stuart, and I'll get a reshare. Even Let us know what you loved about it. And hit the subscribe button so you don't miss another episode. Thank you for listening to the Man That Can Project podcast. My name is Lachlan Stuart, and I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. If you did, please take a moment to rate and review the Man That Can Project on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our newest episodes. We'll see you again next time.